get into your rankings. Let's talk quickly about that top 12. Now, if you look at just the top 12 that you have currently on the website, go to football.razzball.com. Check it out. Derek's way too early quarterback rankings are already up on the site. But you went kind of right off the bat, Josh Allen at 1. You got Jalen Hurts at 2, Dak at 3, Lamar Jackson at 4. Patrick Mahomes might be the biggest surprise here, slips all the way to 5 after relatively a down season for him this season. CJ Stroud, Justin Fields, Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Stafford, and Tua round out your top 12. Now, the only player of that top 12 that actually had an OC change is Jalen Hurts, which now has Kellen Moore. What's your thoughts about the Kellen Moore impact for Jalen Hurts? Do you think this is why you have him at 2, or do you think he even has a chance to be 1? What's your overall thoughts about that fit?
Well, I had him at 2 before the Kellen Moore news, and also before the news. I had Josh Allen at 1 before the news that Ken Dorsey was leaving Buffalo as well. So I could see where I might flip-flop those two. I really like the Kellen Moore move to Philly. I think that's going to really just bode really well for that offense, for Jalen Hurts, for the wide receivers, Swift. Yeah, I really like that move there for Kellen Moore, and I think the Eagles the offense in particular is going to benefit there. So I might actually be a little low on Jalen Hurts at 2. He might actually be the number 1 quarterback next year.
All in on the Kellen Moore signing. So I think a lot of things that people forget. Kellen Moore was not a Mike McCarthy guy. Like, Kellen Moore grew up as a coach under Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan. Okay, they run a different style offense. 2019, I suggest everybody go to Pro Football Reference. Everybody loved Dak this year. Dak was awesome. Dak had a bigger season in 2019. The first season as Kellen Moore was OC, had 4,900 yards passing that season. Now, he did throw for more touchdowns this year than he did that season, but he still had 30 touchdowns that year. And then, of course, the next year, Jason Garrett gets fired. Mike McCarthy comes in. Mike McCarthy runs a West Coast-style offense. That's not really where Kellen Moore comes from. And on top of that, Mike McCarthy brought in his playbook, and Kellen Moore had to adapt to it. So we haven't seen Kellen Moore. We did see a little bit of it last year, but then the Chargers, of course, Justin Herbert got hurt. Mike Williams got hurt. Keenan Allen missed a handful of games. Austin Eckler missed a handful of games. So we don't even know what a Kellen Moore offense would have looked like with all his weapons. But here's some staples of that. Dak Prescott was top 5 in yards per ADOT and yards, and then also 20-plus yard pass plays. So the attempts he had was vertical down the field. By the way, that is Jalen Hurts' bread and butter. Mm-hmm. That's damage. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. Now, I do love the idea of Devonta Smith moving to the slot, becoming that CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen type player, while A.J. Brown continues to dominate outside. I think he would absolutely crush. Per route run in the slot this year was elite, top 20 among players that had at least 20% of their targets from the slot. So I do love that for him as well. The other aspect is the tight end position. If you remember, Jason Witten, Dalton Schultz early on, those guys really thrived in this offense with Kellen Moore. And that's Dallas Goedert. And I think that's a great fit. And the best part is they use foundational backs. He used Zeke Elliott. That 2019 season, he had 300 carries that year. So I think DeAndre Swift would just thrive in this offense too, because they didn't use him as a pass catcher that much anyway. And they won't have to in the Kellen Moore offense if they don't want to, because they have the tight end and the wide receiver core to really fit. So I think it's a match made in heaven. I do think, though, there's always that little ramp up period. There's going to be a little time. Like Lamar Jackson this season was prime example. First half, getting through things, and then he explodes in the second half in that Todd Monken offense. So any final thoughts about Jalen Hurts in that fit?
Yeah, you're right. And, there will be some run up. And I like everything you said about the playmakers there. I think all of them are going to thrive in that offense. But you're right. There will be some, I would say, maybe not growing pains, but just understanding and learning and getting comfortable in the system. But, the thing with Jalen Hurts, that he's not just a one-dimensional quarterback. He's got the legs that he can fall back on. So, especially in maybe in some of those early games where he's still trying to figure it out, because he's probably not taking that many snaps during the preseason. So those first couple of games might be a little challenging to really, get fully comfortable in the audience, in the offense. But he's got his legs to fall back on. I mean, he had 600 yards rushing and 15 touchdowns this year, and that's actually, generally been one of his down years, as far as rushing. So he can fall back on that. He'll be just fine. I think this offense is going to be explosive. They get the defense figured out, and Philly's going to be right back in the mix next year.